can assure you nobody's taking that hat for this year.
But I hope he will retire after he loses.
There won't be another coach. I'm impressed with everybody but him.
It's because they're scared that they may be wrong.
Fully capable of surpassing all of them.
I'm going to give her a run for her money.
I'm coming to win. I'm not coming for fun.
Fair and unfortunate.
He's going to come with losses. It's not the end of the world.
Need for a black curtain backdrop, and I get it.
Bodybuilding is my control within chaos.
My conditioning kills.
Look, you got a really exclusive interview because I ain't been saying none of this shit, yo. I've been holding my tongue on the internet.
Yes, guys, another episode of Monday Night Muscle, episode 3. And I'm with my co-host, 8-time Olympian, Wendy Fortino. Wendy,
yes,
we're working well, but we've got 2 different time zones. I'm in the UK, you are Pacific?
Pacific, yes.
So obviously the biggest time difference I can ask for when it comes to North America. Like, I tell you what, what's been throwing me off is I've not been working out if it's 7 hours or 8 hours behind ahead.
It depends on whether it's daylight savings or not. That's where we got confused last time. But you know what? Come hell or high water, we are making this happen. We have banded together, and like nothing is going to stop us. That's what's going on here. So it's all good.
Absolutely. Look, we got a good episode today. This will be a bit of a difficult one because a lot of people are now heading over to the UK. So try and get us recorded, ready for you guys. And first off, we do have birthday boy yesterday, Neil Hill. Neil Hill will be joining us, of course. A big talking point, the big headline for the Arnold UK is without a doubt the return of Mike Sommerfeld. Obviously, couldn't compete in Ohio due to the weight issue. I imagine lightning is not going to strike twice, and we're going to get the showdown we wanted from the beginning, and that is Mike Sommerfeld versus Wesley Visses.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a little bit of a conversation with Mike Sommerfeld offline, and he really feels terrible for just his image and his fans, and he really wants to show everybody that he does have what it takes to be a true professional. And I know that means a lot to him. I'm sure that he's going to work really, really hard to try to not let anyone down. And I think that, with great, pressure comes great responsibility. It's like he knows that. And it's a good thing because it means that everybody wants to see him on stage. He's that good. And this is what we talked about before, is that if you weren't at that good, people wouldn't care so much. But because we just love his physique so much and we want to see him at his best, it's the reason why there's so much heat around the topic of him being on stage,
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I agree with everything you said there. Look, there are going to be parts of the bodybuilding community who maybe not be a fan of Mike. As with anybody, everyone's going to have their people that they're fans or not. The reality is, myself, you, and the majority of the bodybuilding community really want to see Mike Sommerfeld on stage and give us a head-to-head with Wesley Visses, because like we spoke to Wesley the other day. Oh, I just saw. Oh, yeah, sorry. I saw a message from Neil. Who I'm making sure that Neil. I basically got Instagram open, waiting to see if there's any issues. But I think it'll be joining shortly. What I was going to say was, like I said to Wesley last week on Monday Night Muscle, I said, do you feel that even though you've won the Ohio title, that you didn't beat the reigning champion, therefore you need to have that head-to-head with Mike and actually beat him at an Arnold Classic to solidify the title win? Of course, his response was, look, I'm the reigning UK champion. I'm reigning UK champion. He's got to beat me. And of course, the UK does feel like home territory for him because it's only an hour away. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think Mike Sommerfeld and Wesley both won their pro card at the same show in London quite a number of years ago. So both have had success in the UK. So
absolutely.
You're not going to be in the UK, are you? You're not going to be at the Arnold Classic.
I'm not going to be there physically, but I will be there in spirit, and we are going to be in touch. So
I know it's a shame. I've seen quite a few people obviously unable to make the trip, whether they're competitors or not. And what I do hope is that the UK Arnold Classic it becomes a huge success, therefore solidifying its position as, you know what, anyone in the bodybuilding industry has to come to the Arnold Classic. We don't see any difference from Ohio. So I do hope that we do have a very successful event this weekend. This weekend coming.
I know we will. I know we will. We'll plan for it next year. But this is what I want to say about, the fans who are fair weather. They're the majority of, the peanut gallery does tend to be fair weather, and the fact that when you are down, they will kind of stockpile on top of that and make you feel really, really down. And when you're up, they will all of a sudden be your biggest fan. And these people that kind of ride this wave, you have to kind of tune them out, because it's like that's how it rolls, right? But the people that are really true bodybuilding, aficionados, the people that really are following, the people that really want to see, that's kind of like where you should be focusing your energy on, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I feel about this whole situation with Mike Sommerfeld. You have people, they're going to absolutely love him once he's on top again. And then it's like this thing, it's like that wave, and you see that happen. And it's difficult at the top, it's difficult for the champions to deal with all this, but you got to take it in stride. So sorry to add that.
Well, look, we're going to talk Mike in a moment when Neil does join. We're just waiting for him to log in, and we'll bring on our first guest. Away from that, we do know that, I spoke to the guys from the Arnold, and they gave me 100% confirmation that Martin Fitzwater is in for the Arnold UK. That's it. There were some concerns, because he did say that he might give up on bodybuilding, and there were some mixed messages. But even though it's off socials completely, this is obviously done in a way to ensure that he is just tunnel vision for the UK show. I believe we're going to see a very, very strong Martin, and we're going to get that showdown between Andrew and Martin of the Arnold UK.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad. You know what? When I saw that he was for sure on the list, I was so happy to see that, because I really believe in Martin. I really, I again, another physique. It's interesting because Martin and Mike Sommerfeld, they kind of came on the scene at the same time for me. I remember at the Olympia seeing them both and just being so wowed in the classic physique division and then the bodybuilding division. The two of them were kind of like the wow factor for me that year. And so Martin, his physique when he's on point is just absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to see him. I'm glad he's coming back. I'm glad he's going to prove it to himself and to everybody that he can pull it together. And I'm excited to see it for sure.
Okay, I just got a message from Neil. He's struggling to get onto Zoom. So you're actually seeing this raw in me try and get Neil all sorted on here. Let me just send him a quick message. And hopefully we can get him on shortly, because like I said, I really want to get, just talk to Neil, not just about obviously Mike, but also he, I believe, him and Rafa Brando, they have parted ways, so he's no longer coaching Rafa. Of course, Brandon isn't doing the UK show, so what's Brandon's plans? Can we expect to see him at any of the shows before the Olympia, or is he going to lock it down? Is he going to lock it down for the Olympia? So we're just going to wait for Neil to jump on shortly.
Couple things I want to go ahead.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, you were saying?
Oh no, I was just going to say that before we get Neil on here, it will be interesting to hear from him, just some of the pressures of being a coach at that level, and having these athletes, their whole entire, livelihood and their whole hopes and dreams just feeling like that rest on your shoulders. And I think it'll be good to hear directly from the coach on how that pressure feels from that standpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, obviously we got other categories we do want to talk about a little bit later, but we'll have Ashley Colwater to come on and talk about the Arnold UK bikini lineup, because though we don't have 3 of the top 4 girls, so we haven't got Amy, we don't have Laura Lee, we don't have Ashley, but we do have Ashley and Phoebe. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Ashley. And just like that, I can see Neil Hill is waiting in the waiting room. So let me bring him in. It was his birthday yesterday.
Well, sorry guys.
It's all good.
It's I had Zoom on my phone, and when I was trying to get into it, it wasn't allowing to me to. So I had to I just put it back in my phone. And then I thought, let me try on my computer, my Mac. So I apologize. It's not like me to be late. I tend to be early, which is not like men in general, I don't think.
Neil,
Hello.
it's all good, all good. But look, before we start to talk about the Arnold UK, I have to ask, how did you celebrate your birthday yesterday?
Work, work and a latte coffee. I just worked. Yes. Yeah. I was just working, my friend. It's not that I don't appreciate my birthday and appreciate days, because of course I do. But I was just working. I had really no time to kind of focus on anything else. I leave here on Monday, so I just got a lot to do before I leave. But I went out on Friday night. Some friends organized a really nice dinner for myself and some friends on Friday night. So that was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see plenty of birthday messages on socials from
I haven't
Rex
replied
Lewis,
to.
old pictures as well.
I haven't replied to. I've only replied to. I wouldn't say a few. No, quite a few. But there's a lot more to reply to. Yeah. But there you go.
Well, look,
Happy
yes,
Thank you.
there we go. Happy birthday. But I mean, I
Thank you.
guess what's going to make the birthday even more special is next weekend, the Arnold UK is back after, we haven't had it since 2024, but, we've got all the big names in the world of bodybuilding will be descending on Birmingham come Thursday, come Wednesday. Well, you're flying over on Monday. Look, let's get straight to it. Of course, the headline act, the one we're all looking forward to, I'm sure the majority of the bodybuilding industry are going to be the same, is, of course, Mike Sommerfeld. He's going to be competing at Arnold UK. That was already confirmed straight away after, obviously, what happened in Ohio. I don't even want to look back at Ohio. I don't want to talk about Detroit. I want to look forward. And I guess my first question is, you and Mike, how is the team currently leading into the Arnold UK?
It's in a really great place. It's just like his physique. His physique is, I say it just like his physique. Myself and Mike trained together last Sunday, a week today exactly, and he looked sensational. Now, when I say he looked sensational, he could have stepped on stage looking like that. But there's still drying out to do. There's still a lot of manipulation to do. We also have to sort of face that, we have a long travel in front of us, and so we pre-planned everything in advance. That doesn't mean that, peak week is going to go into a perfect peak week protocol where everything just clicks. But synergistically with where he is at the moment with his physique, he's in a great place. We still have some manipulation to do before we get to registration weigh-ins. But at this present time, he's in a great place. Yeah, he's in a great place. He was over actually here last night, probably for an hour. Him and Channy just come over for my birthday, just catch up conversation. But he's in a great place. He's in a good place with his physique, and emotionally and mentally, he's excited. And that's exactly what I'll say, because he sent me a check-in on Friday, and in his check-in, one of the questions is, "What is your stress like?"
That's
And
what I was going to ask you. That's awesome.
yeah, that's exactly, and I can put it up on you. Basically, it's what's your stress, and I think he said something like social media was 2. I'll have a look. I think it was social media is 2, and the other one was 4, and that would be relatable to just general
Is
stress,
that 1 to
right?
5 or 1 to 10?
Yeah, 1 to 5. Yeah, okay, look. Okay, so what has your internal stress levels been like during this past week, e.g., work, home, life, etc.? 1 to 10. Social media 2, or should I say, he says 2, social media, 4, current situation. And what he means by that, current situation, is, we're going into the latter stage now before the show. There's a lot of there's a lot of pressure and responsibility. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm fatigued. But it's more so the fact that there's an excitement within his tone. And I replied back, and I can't play the message. I could probably play the message, but I basically said, Mike, you have nothing to be stressed about with the current situation. You should be super excited about going into this show. You're going into this show back in Europe, representing Europe. You're from Germany. You're bringing an impeccable physique to the stage. You're going to be competing against the best version of Wesley, probably in his competitive career. So there's a lot to be excited for. And though he put down 4, it's not in a negative way whatsoever.
Right.
There's an air of, pressure. Of course there is. There's a lot riding on this show. There's a lot riding on this look, etc. And there's no doubts, Wesley has made improvements to his physique. But that's the evolution of bodybuilding or any sport in general, So he respects Wesley, and he's got a great sense of rapport and camaraderie between the two of them. But he knows that he's an athlete, and he's going there for with one mindset, and that is to be taking home that Arnold title that he's never taken home before, because he's never competed in the Arnold Classic UK. So there's a personal sense of redemption, so to speak, and also bringing his physique to so many European athletes and fans around the world which have never seen him.
Is there an element as well? Because like we've seen Wesley Vissers twice now on stage, so there's no real surprise factor. We know what Wesley's bringing, but what is alien to us is we don't know what Mike is bringing. You've seen it, but us as fans, the media, the bodybuilding world, that is what's alien to us, and that's what makes it very interesting, because we haven't seen what Mike is going to look like on stage. I guess that's the exciting factor for you. Am I right to say that?
Yeah, I would say so. But sometimes it's really important for us to put things in perspective here, right?
Yeah.
And especially depending on the division, depending on the athlete. What's the excitement about this? There's quite a few things that I'm excited about this, and I've made it. I've had this conversation with Mike on Cheney many times. We've got the challenge and the manipulation that's going to face us with flying from the US to the UK. All right. Mike wasn't able to travel out before, but just because of obligations with business and work obligations. So, otherwise we'd probably travel 1 or 2 days beforehand. Do I feel that we're traveling late? No, we're not traveling late. I feel that the timeline is good. There's only 1 day of loading and filling back up, so that's going to be the biggest challenge. That is by far the biggest challenge for us, because for some athletes, it's not going to be an issue with the criteria or what they're facing. I think Wesley is quite a few pounds under his weight cap. So for somebody like Wesley, he'll be able to start the loading process many hours beforehand if it's necessary and needed, right? With Mike, ideally, it would be great to have 2 or 3 days to start a loading phase, but that's not possible. So even though that's not ideal by any means, it also comes with excitement to see what you can do within a 24-hour window. And I genuinely mean that. Of course, would I like to have 30, 36, 48 hours or 52 hours or whatever it may be? Of course I would do. It would work in Mike's favor, but that doesn't mean it gives him an advantage. It just means you're probably going to see the best version of Mike that you've never seen before, because we have a longer period of time for that final manipulation from the time he steps off that scale to the time he steps on stage. So that's going to be the biggest challenge, because we also have to manage digestion as well. So, we have to make sure that we're able to not create any negative flare up with his digestive ability to utilize, absorb, and force those carbohydrates back into that muscle and his mitochondria, and make sure that we're able to empty his bowels so his midsection is tight. So there's lots of variables, but it's also exciting, and I sincerely mean that.
Do you mind ask as well? I don't know if you are able to disclose this, but we're at Sunday now, and obviously the weigh-in is going to be Thursday. The same time in Ohio, so Sunday to Thursday, what's the weight difference for Mike this far out for the Arnold Classic Ohio versus this far out from the Arnold UK?
Well, yesterday his body weight was... Okay, yesterday his body weight was, say, 6 pounds over the weight... No, about 5 pounds over the weight limit. So he's about so he's about 3 pounds lighter now, I would say, than that point. 3 or 4 pounds lighter now than he was at that point going into Columbus, Ohio.
That's great.
But he was lower than that, because when we discussed about the protocol that we would approach, I made it very clear which way would we move forward with that, because when you have a significant amount of weight to lose, or you have a amount of weight which is not ideal, if you try to do that over a base of a 3-week period, which was from Columbus, Ohio to Arnold Classic, and you drive that weight down as fast as possible, and you're not refeeding, and you maintain that lowest weight, you're going to lose muscle. It's not possible not to. It's just not possible, because you're driving down that weight to a percentage of body fat where you're probably already anorexic anyway, because body fat percentage is extreme. It's absolutely extreme. Because unfortunately, the difference you could say between an athlete who's at the extremist levels of body fat compared to somebody around anorexic is their vital organs, as far as an athlete, are still alive, and they're in a healthy place because there's still body fat or fat within those vital organs, right? But if I was to drive Mike's weight down aggressively over 3 or 4 days, or even 5 days, it would have been fine to refeed him. But if you keep him there and keep him there, he's going to lose muscle. So no matter how much time you have throughout the loading phase, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 days, you're not going to get that muscle back because you've already lost it, right? So, it's been a very mindful, methodical process, basically drive low, refeed, drive low, refeed. And also, one of the benefits of refeeding when necessary and needed, it's not just about the fact is, sort of bringing that muscle back to life and really looking and taking that data to see where his cutoff point as far as carbs are, et cetera, et cetera. It's also how his body is able to handle those loading days when we're refeeding, as far as inflammatory responses, what carbs are potentially going to digest better, but not so fast, but also make sure that we're creating an environment which is not disturbing digestive health, because the last 24 hours are going to be critical for Mike's physique. As far as what would I expect him to look like, of course, I would like to bring a better look if possible, but you can only work with the hours that you have. All right. So this isn't me complaining. All the athletes in the same situation. Everybody's being weighed in at the same time. Everybody's going to be stepping on stage at the same time. So it's not a disadvantage. Everybody's on the same level playing field. So this is not a negative. It's putting positive on it, because I'm excited about those 24 hours. But if we can replicate something very similar to the Olympia, then as a coach, I will be very, very happy, because you have to put it in perspective here. It's the loading timeline, which is critical, and it's everything. It's absolutely everything. So I am going to start refeeding Mike on the Wednesday, but how I'm going to approach that at the moment, I'm not even going to think about it. I can't, because I have to approach it once I see it, and then from meal and through the day to day, because we still have the manipulation of making sure that his weight is going to be able to stay conducive with the following day's height and weight category, or so I say the weight category. So that's where we are. And I never tend to look at, days and days in advance or weeks. And you might say, well, you're contradicting yourself, because you just said that you're driving them down, then you're refeeding. But that's because we're looking to attain a certain look, and how his body handles certain situations. Of course, I'm also aware of how much weight he's gaining during that sort of that loading phase or that refeeding phase. But I'm not manipulating water or sodium. I'm purely trying to get that muscle back alive and see how it's looking.
Sorry. Final question for myself, because I know Wendy's got some questions. On the final question on that, so you foresee there should be no issues this time around for Mike to make weight come Thursday at the weigh-in?
No. And if we're in a situation where, we have to be a little bit more hard on the drying out phase, then we'll do that. But at this current stage, Mike's in a really good place. He has been a little, just a little bit lighter than what he was yesterday. But, but that was yesterday, that's Saturday weigh-in. Sorry, that was Saturday's weight. When he checked in with me on Friday, his weight, his look was X amount. Yesterday sent me a video on his body weight. He sends me a full check-in every every Tuesday and every Friday, unless I want something more. But he sends me a video what he's looking like and his body weight every day. All right. Yesterday, when he was over here, it was probably like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I said, "Oh, Mike, what's your output been today as far as steps?" And he said 6,500 steps, coach, but that doesn't include cardio. That's just him generally walking as well and just staying present. And then obviously his cardio on top of that was another 30 minutes on top of that. And then, he's on very low carbs. So there's a good possibility that today's weight, if he gets a good night's sleep today, his body weight is probably going to quite possibly be 1.5, 2 pounds even lighter. So now, so then we're even closer. And then we still got the whole of today, the whole of Tuesday, and we've got a partial amount of Wednesday. So I don't see any issues. No, not at all.
Sorry, Wendy.
Awesome. Oh, no, I was just going to say that I think a statement and then a question. My statement is just that it's so great that as a coach at your level, you're not doing any knee-jerk reactions to what happened, where I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, right? You come off of the situation that happened, you have the knee-jerk reaction, and you kept it steady. And I think that probably really helps with his mental health and his mental stability. And that's what I wanted to ask you is, as a coach at your level, you're dealing with these athletes, and these are like livelihoods. What is your approach to helping him with his mental health and like keeping him in a mentally good place?
Do you know that's a really great question, because I think anybody who's really worked with me, especially athletes which just have that, like, say, that rapport and that relationship, it's built over years. It's not built over a day. If you had a new client that you were working with and you didn't know this individual, you don't know any about this person's personality. You don't know anything about it. You're just focusing on the athlete and how do you bring the best out in that athlete. And then as a coach in development, relationship develops even more. It becomes a different, more personal relationship. It's probably just part of human nature. It is what it is. It's no different than you just walking into a new working environment. You've never met anybody before. People have different personalities. They're different within themselves. But over a period of time, you build relationships, and you just gravitate to some more than others just because of the energy. I don't gravitate to Mike more because of Mike's ability as an athlete, because when we started working together, he didn't have instant success, but he had a great physique, and he was competitive. I built that relationship over 8 years. It's funny, yesterday I received a beautiful message from a client yesterday, and they said, "Neil, I can't believe that you've been working with Alex." It was Maggie's husband, Alex, for 9 years. And I said, 9 years. And I've got a really close, meaningful relationship with Alex Camberero and his wife, like I do with Mike and Shani. My number one priority, 100%, is health and happiness. Because if they're not healthy and happy, their bodies aren't going to do what you want them to, maybe for a short space of time. And I think that with Mike, we have that relationship where he values my opinion, so to speak. And I don't say something to a client just to make them feel better if I feel that there needs to be a high level of tough love. Yesterday, Brandon Hendrickson wrote a really beautiful post, and I couldn't reply to it because I got very tearful. And
I saw it.
but yeah, because my relationship with Brandon is very special, but it's the person. It's the person. And I've said to him, I don't care if you don't compete against Brandon. I don't care if you don't ever compete again. I just want you to be happy and healthy in life. That's all I care about, nothing else. And as long as you're happy and healthy in life, and you decide at some point that you want to step away from the industry, our relationship is always going to stay the same. My point in this message is that when you have that rapport and that client trusts you, and they allow you to take over control of sometimes certain situations or certain environments, you're not just a coach on the level of trying to bring the best performances or best look to the stage. You're a life coach, and that, I think, has many layers to it. So it hasn't obviously been easy, and social media can be a very, very negative outlet. You have no idea how many negative comments I've received, and there's no warrant in the comments because I haven't even talked about Columbus, Ohio. I haven't talked about certain situations, but you know what? It's okay. I just focus on what I need to do because at the end of the day, if you as an individual know really the dynamics of everything, you don't need to bring it to public light because somebody's always going to have an opinion. I focus on what we need to do, and that's where my priority is. So,
Neil,
I think that we're all blessed, right, to be involved in an incredible industry. It's very dynamic, has different layers, so to speak. I feel that the promoters, the organizers, the people behind the scenes in the IFBB Pro League and NPC Worldwide are doing an absolutely incredible job of trying to bring an incredible level of competitive bodybuilding from an amateur level to a professional level. And sometimes things just, sometimes things are not always what you think they are. But, Mike did not meet the criteria in Columbus, Ohio. It was, he's already taken accountability for that from a very sincere post. And I think that shows, good morals and honesty and a sincere sense of apology to, IFBB Pro League, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Brian Powers, and obviously the committee. And at the end of the day, he sincerely apologized and he's moving on. So it's not that I'm trying to say, hey, let's push it aside. We could be here talking all day and night. It doesn't change anything. Our focus is on what we need to do, and that's to bring the best version of Mike to the stage to represent himself, his sponsors, his family members, to represent the IFBB Pro League and show his appreciation to Brian Powers, Arnold, and the Arnold event. And he's super excited. And this is very personal. Let me just say that. It's a personal show for Mike and it's a personal show for me.
As I also want to add, because I remember Mike also, it could have been very easy for Mike to have not gone onto the My Protein stand or the Biowell stand on Sunday or Saturday. I think both days. I think I saw some athletes maybe not get the result and they didn't do any of their sponsorship duties, but Mike still made time to ensure that though the fans couldn't see him on stage, there was still opportunity to see him, and he still was on the My Protein stand, still on the Biowell stand, which I'm sure it was a hard. It was tough because of course everything happened, but that this does show the character of the man, that he still made time to ensure that people didn't leave disappointed and the fans still had the opportunity to see them. And your point there, Neil, you saying that this show is personal to him. I think we can all see that from his the post he did, taking accountability of what happened. I think that's just what is making this weekend coming so exciting as a fan of bodybuilding, that we are going to get Wesley versus Mike. Not just Wesley versus Mike, but also the best version Wesley, and now a Wesley that's just come off the Arnold Classic Ohio win. But we're also going to have Mike Sommerfeld, which, according to yourself, we shouldn't have any issues making weight, and also how spectacular he's looking at the moment, using your words. This is the headline act we all want, and no doubt it's going to bring on a lot of eyeballs for the live stream.
And I want to just piggyback on that really fast and say, to Neil, first of all, what you said was so beautifully articulated, and I just appreciate that. You gave me chills. But I think it's in a way, things like this that happen to elite athletes, it's always good because it really humanizes the athlete, right? I mean, we looked at Mike Sommerfeld when he came out of the gate and he was inhuman. I mean, he was just the most incredible species. I remember when he came out and I thought, where did this guy come from? And all of the things that he's been through, you two have been through together, it has really allowed the fans to see him in a more human way. And when he gets through this and he rises again, and where we see him, it's all going to be just part of the journey and part of the process. And thank you for coming on and helping to bring that human aspect, because I think that that's one of the things that the fans and people in general really need to know about these athletes and see firsthand. You know what I mean?
They're fragile. And it's not just that they're fragile because of obviously, hormones and everything else. Let's be real. When you're walking around with such extreme body fat percentage, how you feel, how you act, how you look at certain situations, it's going to be, it's not always in the same light as somebody who is in a more healthier mindset, so to speak, just because they're not fatigued, they're not so tired, they're not dramatic with fat levels, but they are human beings. And I think, and people are individuals. I'm not here trying to, talk good or defend Mike or anybody. But I'm telling you, Mike is a good individual. He's a good human being. And unfortunately, somebody has to be the bad guy. Do you know what I mean? And that's not a role that he wants to play. I think that there's been so many occasions where he has been got, a lot of negative comments from global individuals who probably say those things because they are a fan of a competitive athlete who's going to be potentially who's going to have to compete against a Mike Sommerfeld or a Ramon Dino or a Nile or whatever, or whoever it may be. And it can be difficult sometimes to compose yourself. But for me, I'm very good at disconnecting myself from the noise. And it's simply because you got to focus on what you need to do. At the end of the day, I look like this: as long as you're a good human being, you've got good morals, and you're honest and you're transparent. Just be yourself. And if that doesn't tick everybody's box, then that's okay. They can jump into a different box, so to speak, right? So we just focus on what we need to do. And I want to sincerely wish all the athletes all the very best in all the divisions this forthcoming weekend next week. I want to say a massive shout out to Brian Powers because that guy is absolutely incredible what he's doing with the Arnold Classic and Arnold team. And also, I think that even though it's innocent on all our behalfs, I think that we've spoken about two athletes, Wesley and Mike. There's going to be a lot of other amazing athletes, and I cannot wait to be able to sit down in the audience there watching these athletes compete against, and whoever is whoever deserves to be victorious at the end of the day, I will be celebrating and clapping my hands, whoever it may be. Whether it's in the classic division or whether it's open or in other categories, it's going to be an amazing celebration of bodybuilding finally back in the UK with the Arnold Classic UK.
Great way to end that, Neil. I really appreciate your time, and you have a safe flight tomorrow. I can't wait to see you guys come Thursday.
I look forward to seeing you. I want to say thank you to you both, and I appreciate your time because I know that life is busy for everybody, and I've got to go make myself a cup of British tea and make my breakfast.
Good man. You take care.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Neil. Absolutely incredible. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, and good luck with you, young lady, with everything that you do in life, not just on stage but off stage, and all the different layers that you're going through. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Really, really.
Cheers, Neil.
Thank you, guys. Take it easy. I appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Okay, look, I really appreciate that from Neil Hill. Obviously, he'll be heading out with Mike to the Arnold UK. And Wendy, I guess that's good to hear from Neil about the fact that the place Mike is in, it sounds like he's in 5 pounds over his stage weight versus what he had to drop last time. So we should be on course for Wesley vs Mike in the UK.
I think it's so great for the fans and the athletes to get that behind the scenes, hearing from Neil Hill directly about their approach and what's going on back there, because, we just see what happens on the surface and we don't really humanize these athletes enough. And I think that's exactly what we just did. And Neil Hill did such a beautiful job of explaining what their process is. And I feel good about it. I think after hearing him explain everything, now I'm even more excited to see what we're going to see from Mike. And this is going to be a very exciting show. I think more exciting than the Arnold, because now we've got the real duel off, I think.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. When we look, we don't have Brandon Hendrickson in men's physique, so therefore it's wide open for the other lot. Obviously, the bikini, we don't have Amy or Laura Lee. In the open, we don't have Nick Walker or Hardy. So really, this is a headline act. And like I said to Neil, I do believe because we've seen what Wesley has brought on the last two shows at the Arnold and Detroit, it's going to be no surprise to what we expect from Wesley. However, Mike is what's alien to us. We don't know what he's going to bring, but also the fact, as Neil pointed out, he's only got 24 hours to then fill him out after the weigh-in. And that is the alien part, because last time in Olympia, he had 48 hours. So what can he do in 24 hours to make sure he's at a point to challenge someone like Wesley, who's already got a bit more room in his weight cap?
He's got the fire too. I mean, for any champion who's been taken down, it's those moments that actually make you come back harder. And that's the cream that rises to the top. I mean, every setback is basically the prime for the comeback. And so I think that we will be surprised, maybe some people will be surprised to see that the setback actually is what's going to make him even better.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, I can see our next guest waiting in the wings. Let's bring her in, because let's call it how it is. She is the GOAT of Bikini. She has the most wins of any pro in any division.
Oh, yeah.
It is, of course, Ashley Colwasser.
Hi,
Ashley, can you hear
Ashlyn.
us?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. Good.
Good to see you too.
Super well. Look, Ashley, let's get to the point first. You've broke a lot of hearts here in the UK, in Europe. I know you shared it on your own channel, but Ashley, you are not doing the UK show. Just explain the reason behind it, because I think a lot of people, when they saw the graphic, the promotion material, they saw you in it. But I guess it was never really fully confirmed that you were going to do the UK show.
Well, yeah, there was a little bit confusion with that, because at one time I thought I even had an interview with you and I mentioned that I was looking forward to it. But I was taking a look at like my schedule and the way things are set up, and I'm like, this show does not really make sense to me for me to do schedule wise. Had a lot of seminars around that time as well, so it made it extremely difficult. So in January, before the cutoff, I did email them to let them know that I'm just going to decline the offer to go. But yeah, so that's why you'll probably still see me on graphics, although I'm not competing there. So a little bit bummed, but I think it's for the best, especially considering my last showing at the Arnold. I do think I could probably benefit for just a little more time off. So it all worked out regardless.
Well, can we just talk on a moment about the last Arnold Classic? You just mentioned they could do with a little bit more time off. So what was your reflection back on your performance at the Arnold Classic? And you say a bit more time off. How much time do you think you may need before we can see you back on stage?
So I don't need a whole lot more time. So just to backtrack a little bit, at the Arnold, it wasn't my best. I feel like I did a whole 180 from the Olympia, where I was maybe a little bit too soft. At this Arnold, I was like a little bit too lean. And I think also part of my mind was like, I am never coming in a little too soft ever again. So I think that, and just things didn't happen the way I want. But with that being said, I'm happy about my placing. 4th place, I'll take that all day. I'm happy about that. But when I did see like the first call out and I saw the girls, how full and round they were, I was like, I do not belong in that first call out. So it made a lot of sense to me. I didn't even like need the feedback. After I got off stage, I'm like, one of these things is not like the others.
Oh God.
So
well, okay, but for you, I think it's really difficult. You're in a very unique bracket that no one else is in. And that bracket is that your physique, you have been peaked and primed more times than any other woman on that stage. And the judges have seen you in every single peaked form. So there are so many reference points for you, and so many, like, this is the physique that we expect when we see Ashley on the stage. So when you make improvements, it's interesting, because I almost feel like every judge has like memorized your physique top to bottom. And so it makes it challenging for you, but that's why I look up to you so much. That's one of the reasons why it's so impressive that you keep coming back and you keep improving. And, regardless of the fact that takes a lot of athletes down, the fact that even me, I haven't been on stage as many times as you, but I know the judges expect a certain thing from me. And it's a challenge. You know what I mean? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it can be challenging because sometimes it's like, even for myself, I want to bring in my best. Like, I don't want to just compete for the sake of competing, just because I can. I'm not doing anything that weekend. I want to bring in a solid like package because even for myself, I would hate to see myself like backtrack. I get that every once in a while we're going to have shows where, just I didn't peak right or, some things beyond our control, sleep hormones, things like that. But, I take that in consideration as well. It's just making sure that I'm improving. So sometimes, as much as I want to compete, I do try to be smart about it. If there's something I need to work on, I'm not going to just jump into the next show the next weekend. I'm going to take time and analyze, like, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? And go from there. So it can be tricky because it's really hard to sit at home sometimes and be like, man, I wish I was there,
Yeah. I get it.
I mean,
No.
Ashley, so, okay, the Arnold UK is out. I know you mentioned at the start of the year that you do want to maybe still do a run of shows like you did in 2024. Obviously, 2025 was a bit different. Do you have any ideas then maybe when your fans and the bodybuilding world could expect to see you back on stage?
Sure. So, like, in the past, like a chunk of shows that's worked really well for me is like that June, July, August kind of time frame. That's when I tend to compete the most. I find that during that time, there's a lot of available shows where, like, let's say in the beginning of the year, even late March, they're a little more sparse. But during that time, they really pick up, which is good for me because I can go back to back to back to back. So I want to say I'll probably start June-ish, and then run into the Olympia, depending how I feel. But you might see me a little bit before. I'm not counting that off the table either. You might see me before that if I look the part, but I don't want to jump on stage until like I know I got this. I know that like the physique is where it should be. So yeah, that's my say on it.
I guess when you say maybe before June, certain shows come into my head around May time, New York, Pittsburgh, Legion. I mean, obviously New York and Pittsburgh are the big ones. And we know Amy and Laura Lee are already going to be at Pittsburgh. Were they ones that were floating in your head about potentially doing?
Maybe Pittsburgh. I don't know about doing New York so much, but Pittsburgh I have my eye on. Let's see if I feel like I'm ready to do that, or even something a little before. I'm not counting out, even maybe April, but I don't want to like speak too far because I'm not sure. So it's
Pittsburgh
very week by week. I will tell you though,
Yeah.
if I compete at like a show like in April, I probably wouldn't even know till like that Monday, like right before I sign the contract. I got to meet with coach and be like, all right, are we ready for this weekend? So that's kind of how it is. Other than like, because for the Arnold, it's like you don't get the luxury of deciding that Monday. You have to decide like months before. So that's, if I do something in April, I'll probably make that decision that Monday.
Why do I feel it's going to be Phoebe?
Because I mentioned it, but I don't know.
I mean, look, obviously, I know Phoebe is only around the corner, but either way, whether we see you back in April or May, June, I think the fact that we're going to see you in the run of shows is the main thing as well, leading on to Olympia. Let's look ahead at the Arnold UK. Wendy, Ashley, I really want to talk about this show because, look, we already know 3 of the top 4 are not doing the show. Obviously, Ashley, Amy, and Laura Lee. And then we look at the top 5. So we're kind of looking at, Ashlyn in 3rd and Phoebe in 5th. You would argue that, they're the 2 kind of standout ones just based on the places we saw at the Arnold Classic. I want to throw it to yourself, Ashley. Ashlyn and Phoebe, what do you think? You place right between the 2. In your eyes, this is Phoebe's return to the stage. She won the Arnold UK in 2021. You won it. What year was it?
22.
22. That's it. What do you think Phoebe can do differently to maybe close that gap between her and Ashlyn to maybe become a 2-time Arnold UK champion?
Well, I would say I don't think it's about what she can do. I would say it would be more about preference of that day, because we're looking at two extremely different body types. Yeah. One that's maybe a little more fuller, slightly softer, one that's a little more athletic, a little bit leaner. So I don't think it's about what she can do other than bring your absolute best. Both of them have to do that, because if one of them's off, the other one's going to take over. So I would say it could be anyone's win that day.
Because I mean, Wendy, when I spoke to Becky the other day on the Bikini Insider, she mentioned two things. One, for Ashlyn, is they wanted a bit more fullness on the lower half, and on Phoebe's feedback, it was to adjust the front pose. Now, if I'm looking at that feedback, I'm thinking, wait there, that front pose adjustment is far easier than maybe to get the right fullness in the lower half in time for the Arnold UK. I mean, what's your thoughts on this potential head-to-head showdown between Ashlyn and Phoebe, both those two achieving top 5 in Ohio?
I think that Ashlyn has the most pressure on her because she has the most momentum going into this show, coming off of second at the Olympia and then, you know, being in that top 3 at the Arnold. I think she definitely has the most pressure on her. And so it really comes down to, you know, these athletes when they're at the tippy top, you know, how they're able to handle that pressure, because she's the strongest contender heading into this show. But then we have Phoebe, who really doesn't have too much pressure on her, even though she did win the Arnold UK in 2021. You know, she kind of popped up into and slid into that spot at the Arnold, and all of a sudden now our eyes are on her again, you know? So she's kind of able to come in with a little bit low profile, even though we're paying attention to her. So between the two of them, it's going to come down to in this division, who is able to handle that pressure, who's going to peak perfectly. And then like Ashley said, you know, the preference of the judges, because when they are peaked perfectly, they are two completely different looks. You know what I mean?
Actually, what I'm going to do, I'll be just trying to search for the full Arnold UK lineup. I'm going to bring up the promotional graphic. You are on this one because it was the first one that was posted. So let me just bring this up. Looking at this, we already know you both can see this, right?
Yeah.
Yep. We know obviously there's no Ashley and there's no Jordan. So those two are definitely obviously not doing the show. We got all the rest. We know Marie, who did the Ohio, Tianna, your teammate Ashley, she's also a UK show. But obviously we've got some other names, mostly obviously European girls coming to the show. Who do you feel could be ones to watch to maybe challenge Phoebe and Ashlyn for not just a title, but maybe a top 3 or pushing top 5? Who are the danger girls?
The danger girl.
Do you want to go with me?
Oh, yeah, Ashley, I'll go for you first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as the list, what I'm looking at here, I think Marie Eve has a good shot, although she's not European. I know you specifically mentioned the European girls. She's Canadian. I think she can definitely hang with the best. And the interesting part is some of these, these names we're not quite as familiar with. So it's going to be a little more of a shot in the dark, I would say, which makes it really, really interesting to watch. I know that Nivea is from Brazil, I believe. She's one to watch as well as Savannah Watchman. She's a good one too. So I think those ladies will definitely be up there in that top call out.
I mean, Wendy, Ashley just mentioned something good there. She mentioned that fact that like maybe not too many of the girls are kind of worldwide recognized, but this is the great opportunity they've got where if they can get into a first call out and get next to a Phoebe and Ashlyn, all of a sudden they're getting a lot of eyeballs for themselves and they can build great momentum going into future shows. Even if they don't win the All UK, they're putting themselves in a spotlight.
Well, and this is why it's so exciting to get yourself onto that list. You know, you apply, and when your name gets chosen, whether it's the Arnold, Ohio, Arnold UK, any of the Arnolds, when your name lands on that list, you know that you're going to get that worldwide recognition. And then it does carry into the whole rest of the season. I mean, in this lineup, we've got 14 girls, and we had 11 girls at the Arnold, Ohio. Well, at any other given pro bikini contest, you've got upwards of 30, 40, 50 plus girls. And if you're not a known name and you're lost in the sea of that many women, it gets difficult to stand out. But when you're on this list and you're one of 14 women, regardless of how you place, you've made your name more of a staple name. Judges are going to have their eye out for you more when you move forward in the rest of the season. So no matter what the outcome is for all these women, being on that list and getting that worldwide recognition is absolutely going to set them up for the whole rest of the season. That's how I feel, for sure.
Girls, I want to bring up a couple of competitors because a couple of the Europeans, they obviously competed at the Olympia last year, but also they did compete in the US and they secured wins, which of course, as a European competitor, is obviously the next level to make a big statement in the bikini division, which of course, at the moment, when you do look at the Big 15, it is American dominated, and we are starting to see more European girls get into the Olympia and start challenging for those titles. One of them I want to bring up is Alice from Italy, who I believe secured 3 wins last year. I think 2 of them were in the US. Let me just bring her up. Ashley, have you come across Alice before?
I do believe I remember seeing her around. Very impressive physique, just what you're showing me here. Yeah, nice and full.
So this is someone who has, I do believe she got 3 wins last year. I think the first one qualified her in Holland, the Euro Muscle Show, and then she did 2 US shows and getting 2 wins. And I think she did place in the kind of the top 20 placing in Olympia. She didn't make the top 15. I think that Victoria and Evie were the 2 European girls in the top 15, but Alice was one who did make an impression, and she did break in the top 20. So I think she's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on for the Arnold UK. I also just want to bring up one other girl as well, and that is Adrianna. I think she's.
I was gonna say I meant to mention her. I forgot to mention her, but she's one that I definitely think I would put money on it. She's going to be top 5. I love her balance. She's a really good athlete. So one of my favorite European athletes.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit of backstory as well. So she qualified for Olympia. I can't remember what placing she got, but she did get a win in the US. I don't know if it was Sasquatch. That was it. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So she was one of the I think only maybe 2 European girls got wins in the US last year, her and Alice. So you say you're of all the European girls, you're a fan of hers?
Yeah, definitely.
I think with her physique, she's got just the right balance of muscle and softness. It gets difficult because we talk about this, but sometimes the most impressive physique is maybe almost like delving into a different category, and that it gets tricky because the young lady that you were showing us before, I thought her physique looked incredible. But I was looking at, her broadness and her shoulder development and her overall development top to bottom. And she's got a lot of muscle on that frame. So it is interesting because, they're trying, especially at these big shows, the Arnold UK, the Olympia, they have to be so on top of fitting that criteria because that's what sets the tone for all the rest of the shows and the NPC and everything that goes on for the rest of the season too.
I think what's interesting for those 2 girls I just showed as well is they are coached by the same coach, and that is James from Team Atlas, who obviously knows about getting girls in those top placings at the biggest shows. I do have to bring up one more competitor as well because it is a UK show, so you may know where I'm going with this. Let me find Kerry Sexton from the UK. Because it's a UK show. We got 2 UK representatives in the bikini division, which is always great because we're so used to maybe only having 1. But we do have 2, and she's not been sharing too many updates. Obviously, she is my co-host on Bikini Insider. Ashley, I know you've you've spoke, you've met, you're friends with Kerry. What's your thoughts on Kerry's chances at the Arnold UK?
Yeah, she definitely has a chance to be up there in that top call out. And again, depends on judges' preference. I do find her to be one of the more muscular, dense competitors. So if you have a panel that has a lot of that preference, there's a good chance she might be up there. So it's really cool to see how many different physiques are being represented at the show. We just went through like 5 or 6, and they're all so different. But yeah, she would be a little more on the muscular side, I would say.
Absolutely. I know everyone in the UK is very excited to see Kerry back on stage, kick off her season. I'm so happy she got the invite to the Arnold UK. I just want to finish on one other competitor, because she is your teammate, Ashley. She's the youngest one on stage come the Arnold UK. She's the youngest one on stage at the Arnold, Ohio. And that is Tianna. 21 or 22? Oh, she's 22 now. I would love to hear your thoughts, because obviously you've been competing for well over a decade. You've seen plenty of girls come and go as well. And this is someone that really made waves last year because she qualified for Olympia, winning, I think was it the show in LA. She's got the invite for both Arnold Classics. She's obviously shares your coach. And after this show, she's going to go into an off season, so we won't see her back on stage until 2027. How high is this young girl's ceiling?
Very hard to tell. She's still got a lot of room to grow. There's always going to be the genetic factor as well, meaning no matter how much muscle you put on, we also have to take consideration genetics and structure. So it's hard to tell the future of things, of course, but she's definitely got some great momentum and she's making great progress every year. And I would say the best quality about her, and I know this because I'm her teammate, she's very realistic. So she's not going into a show expecting to win everything. She got her mind right. Let's just say that. So, who knows where the bikini division is going to be by the time she peaks, right? Because look what happened. Look what happened 10 years ago. It's definitely not the same. So we don't know what bikini is going to be like in 10 years or 8 years.
She could be around for like 20 years and still be like young. She'll be like, even at 40, like there's some girls on that stage that are like in their 40s and they still look incredible. So she could have like another 20 years ahead of her.
Guys, I want to move away from the Arnold UK for a moment, and I do have to talk about Fit Model because we just had the first ever Fit Model Pro Show in Japan, which had nearly 50 competitors. The first North American Fit Model Pro Show is coming up next month. That is the Wasatch Show, which I believe is going to be absolutely packed when it comes to Fit Model Pros, not just in the amateur ranks, but also in the Pro Show. Wendy, we've seen the first Fit Model Pro Show. We saw Emily Chanel, who I know actually you know well because, of course, she's from Las Vegas. What was your thoughts, Wendy, of seeing the first ever Fit Model Pro Show take place?
I was really encouraged. I loved to see what they rewarded because it gave us a good idea of what that initial criteria looks like. I think going into that first pro fit model show, there was a lot up in the air. And this is how it was when Bikini first started too. We didn't really totally know what direction things were going. We're starting to see more streamlined posing. We're starting to see more of a like standard look. And, Emily Chanel, I think, was such a beautiful champion. She looks like she has a physique that she's worked hard for, which I like. But it also is a very specific look that isn't quite bikini. So, I mean, it was just right. I feel like the way that we saw that first show go down, it gave us all a sense of, okay, like this is a real division. We're really getting, the girls getting rewarded, really work hard. We have a standard look and now we can have something to go off of, some good criteria.
Ashley, I mean, look, when the Fit Model division was announced, your face, your physique was plastered all over it. And of course, we were using you as a blueprint. And of course, we were waiting for that first pro show to kind of move away from what they were using to launch the event to now set the standard. And what was interesting was when we had the Fit Model Pro show, we started seeing quite a few bikini pros make that transition over to Fit Model, and there was some, I want to say concerns. I remember I took a clip from your podcast with Adam when you were saying that some of these girls were getting worried or concerned about some of the bikini pros coming over that may and then just jump ahead of them and take the win. That was completely opposite to what we saw in Japan. Do you feel that what we saw in Japan absolutely nailed what we're supposed to see from the Fit Model division, and it clears up any sort of concern of what the division stands for?
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, I love the choice they made. I think she's the perfect representation of what a fit model girl should be. And going back to what you said about the bikini pros and people being worried about them, I'd say now bikini pros are at a disadvantage if they're trying to go to this division. So they definitely don't have the advantage. They have the disadvantage. They made it quite clear. But Emily is great because I look at her physique and I'm not confused. She's fit model. I'm not like, is she bikini? No, she's fit model. She looks the part. She's very tight, very curvy. There is no body part that's overpowering. Everything's perfectly in balance. Great stage presence. Everything was on point. And her routine just like shined confidence. And although it wasn't a very long routine because they keep it at 10 seconds, she didn't need that extra time. Like she got her point done on stage and got off, but she killed it. Yeah, I'm super, super excited about that. And I know that there was some people even saying, well, this doesn't look like the photos of what they wanted the fit model girls to be because they used my photo, right? And no two body types are ever going to be the same, right? I would say that it was close to what my physique looked like. I did have more developed abs back then, but that wasn't supposed to be like that. It was too much even then for fit model to have those kind of abs. But I would say that she probably had bigger shoulders than me back then too. So no one's ever going to be exactly like a copy paste physique. So I think a lot of people were just like, but this girl doesn't have the abs though. But it's like I wasn't supposed to have them anyway. Even then it was just, we all have body parts, even Olympia winners are going to be maybe a little body part that's like a little bit off. For me, it was my abs back then. So I wanted to put that out there.
Good. That was good.
Wendy, I mean, we're starting to see the numbers in Fit Model, not just obviously the first pro show, but also in the amateur shows, especially last year when they made its debut. It started quiet, but started getting busier and busier and busier. And we started to see a lot of the girls as well, because it felt like it was a physique that was more attainable and sustainable over a longer period, jumping to multiple shows. There is the consensus, and I know Ashley's coach, Adam, has said it, other coaches have said it as well, but they believe that in a few years' time, Fit Model could be the most dominant class when it comes to participants, when it comes to the volume of competitors. Is that something you would agree with?
I do. And a lot of the reason why is because, this kind of happened. I've been through multiple generations now in multiple eras, multiple eras. And I saw this happen with the figure division, right? The figure division was the place to be. When I first started competing in 2008, it was figure, fitness, and bodybuilding. And that was it, right? So every woman who couldn't start in bodybuilding was starting in figure. So it had all sorts of different body types and different bodies that were all competing in figure. And then when bikini was added, we saw that shift happen where the competitors at the local levels in figure started to become more sparse. And that was simply because the thought of obtaining a muscular physique like the one that I had developed over years of gymnastics and dance and track and stuff like that, it was like not really possible if somebody wants to do an entry level show. So then bikini now is starting to become that same moment in time that figure was back then, right? Where a lot of girls, they don't feel when they see a physique like some of the physiques you popped up in the Arnold UK, a lot of women that are getting started say, I can't create that physique right now. So I'm going to start where I feel like I can enter, now that's Fit Model. So as long as Fit Model doesn't do the same thing, we stay where we're at, I think for sure. And it, like, I'm glad you made that clarification. From a participation standpoint, it absolutely is going to be a dominant force. From a fan standpoint, I think we still have, Bikini is going to be always a fan favorite because the physiques are so incredible, so impressive. Figure is kind of dwindled a little bit. It's kind of found its way inside of the little nook. I don't know. But bikini, wellness, you have men's classic physique, men's bodybuilding. These divisions are always going to be fan favorites. But in terms of from a participant standpoint, I do see Fit Model and even like men's physique being higher in the participation at the local level and, even above that for sure.
Ashley, one thing I noticed as well leading into the Fit Model Pro show in Japan was the kind of community the pros have kind of created. I saw a lot of them meeting up in gyms and restaurants, really making the most of this historic moment that they are the first ever pros to compete in the first ever Fit Model Pro show. It only have happened once, just like it only have the first ever Fit Model Pro card winner, which was Angie. First pro winner, which was Emily. Now we're going to wait to see who is the first ever Fit Model Pro Olympia winner, which we'll know at the back end of September. However, obviously, the Fit Model division is still divisive in the bodybuilding community, and just like any division, men's physique still with board shorts, it takes time to maybe win over the masses. A lot of these girls as well who are turning Fit Model Pro, when you take out North America, other countries may only have one or two girls as Fit Model Pros. So therefore, their community, when it comes to pro status, it's much smaller than other countries, and they may feel a bit more isolated. However, they also have the opportunity to grow the Fit Model division in their territory, in their community. What's your advice to the girls who are turning pro in Fit Model on what they can do to grow the division in their country, within their community, to ensure that this division continues to go on that trajectory and that it's become one day a dominant division in regards to participants?
I would say just being a good representation for the division, even at seminars, volunteer your time, because there's so many amateurs that would love to learn from a pro, especially if you're like one of only two pros in your country. And I actually think that's kind of a cool thing. I would be going around screaming at I'm the only Fit Model Pro from this country. I would say market that, capitalize on that, because who knows how long you're going to be the only one. So make the most of that time so you can, make the most of it. Like I said, getting yourself involved. There's the cool thing about nowadays is there's so many seminars taking place. When I started out, I remember going to one seminar once a year in Cleveland, Ohio. But now it's like there's so many options and different ones to choose from. I mean, I can't speak to everywhere in the world, but in the States, it's like you get a choice. Do I want to go to the one in Texas? Do I want to go to the one in California? But with you guys, I thought it was really cool that Beyond the Stage TV had a seminar in UK, and that kind of opens the door for the European athletes to travel and to get some experience and meet up.
Yeah, we had our first one at the start of February. Had about 750 people attend. It was completely free, obviously supported by Gymshark. We had Samson, Ryan, Michelle, obviously 3 Olympic champions for 24, 25, and very well supported by mainly IP pros. And it was something that I took inspiration from the events that you two have been part of over so many years, and seeing the events like the NPC Women's Workshop, all the other ones done by Center Podium, or the events I've seen in Court Fitness, many. And it was a matter of time to really bring one to the UK. And I think that's a great point there, actually, is that these girls have the opportunity to go and create your own seminar, if it wants to be in person, whether it's 5, 10, 20, 30 people turn up, whatever it is. But also at the same time, if you want to make it virtual, you can obviously reach people worldwide, because in the end, Europe is a big country and everybody still wants to hear from those pros, especially when it's their division related. Ashley, thank you so much for your time. And I guess I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that maybe we see you in Germany, in Cologne, I know. Your hands are going up there, but
she's like 6 or 7.
maybe there, could be Pittsburgh, could be in June, but either way, it's always great to see you, Ashley, and once again, look forward to seeing you back on stage soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Love you, Ashley.
Love you too. Nice seeing you guys. Bye.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, Wendy.
Yes.
I think that's a wrap for this week's episode.
It is a wrap, man. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens. We've got some exciting new things that are going to come around the corner. I'm sure that we're going to reconvene and we're going to have a lot to say about the results. So everybody stay tuned because we're going to break it all down after all the juicy stuff goes down.
Yeah, I know for sure next week with the after the Arnold Classic UK result, I'm going to do my best to try and get obviously one of the classic winners, whether it's Wesley or Mike or maybe someone else comes in. But I guess yeah, we don't know. But looking at it looks like to go down to these two.
Whoever it is, we're gonna get them.
Yeah, we're gonna try to do that as well. Same with we'll see what men's physique, bikini, the other divisions. We're gonna try and get as many of the winners on here for the Arnold UK recap because, like I said, it's very, very exciting on the UK standpoint because we don't get these events often. We didn't have it last year, and for us, we are just watching on the sidelines. You guys over in North America having these glamorous shows, these huge expos, all the names descending from city to city, and we're here across the pond, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for this opportunity. And now we've got the Arnold Classic here, back again, a 3-day event. I no doubt believe it's going to be a successful event. I do hope that we start seeing it stay in the UK, not every other year, but every single year.
Let's go.
All right, guys, that's a wrap.